This house was built in I don't know, about 2000, and it has a single-storey rear projection with LED flashings protecting the junction of the roof with the outside walls of this house and the neighbour's house. Now, what I think is an absurd suggestion is that rodents will have chewed up the flashings, but let's have a look. I mean, we're going to have a look because that's what has happened, but well, I think it's happened, and I think I've seen it before. I've never seen a rodent doing it, but that corner there, you can see it's all bright and shiny. Is that still in focus? I hope it is. So doing some proper damage. And over there, which you can see, lots of little bits of lead on the roof. And previously, I've seen flashings around a chimney absolutely wrecked by this sort of absurd behaviour. Someone ought to have a word with them. There is definitely something strange going on with West Country rodents. I mean, this is the third time now I've come across lead flashings which have been quite clearly chewed up by some kind of animal. Let's go a little bit closer without falling off the ladder. Look at that. Quite clearly gnawed. And this is becoming a familiar story. We are now in Warminster, so the plague of rogue squirrels seems to be extending further and further. And this is a little flat roof at the back of a house, a little bit of lead flashing, and there it is, gnawed again by mental lead chewing rodents. This is a fractured, reconstituted stone windowsill. Not much of a fracture there, but as we go all the way to the other end, it gets a bit more significant and a bit more obvious. And it's probably an indication that there's steel reinforcement in the windowsill. Although I'm not absolutely sure why you need steel reinforcement to a windowsill. The point I should have made there is that as the steel corrodes, there's an expansion process, and the expansion process breaks up the reconstituted stone part, so eventually little bits of concrete are going to start falling off and a new windowsill will be required. So, underground drainage, never quite sure what to say about underground drains. This drain appears to be an interceptor drain, or as an interceptor trap there, which is a funny idea, but I think the drain below is blocked, so any rainwater effluent has to sort of accumulate till there's enough depth for it to spill over the top into that drain there, which is a strange way to go about things, really. So I suspect fundamentally though the drain's blocked, the interceptor is just full of crap, so it's got to go up and over the top. And just there, up above, there's another drain which looks like it's spilling in. That one goes to the road, so that's probably redundant, but how the hell would I know? This is a fairly regular looking 1960s bungalow, except that the bricks from top to bottom in the front corners of the bungalow have been chopped out and replaced. Now, why would that happen? Is that apparent? They're all new bricks, all the way from the top to the bottom of the house. Bungalow. And the same the other side. You don't need me to show you that. So I did wonder why. I was coming up with all sorts of theories. I asked the next door neighbour, and she said the surfaces of the bricks had spalled, so they chopped them out and replaced them. But none of the others have spalled, but maybe that explanation will have to do. Here, it's one of those occasions when the builder turned up without his tools, so he's borrowed a dessert spoon from the vendor and used that to do his repointing. Yes, that's definitely what pointing looks like when you do it with a dessert spoon. There are 5 drill holes over the entrance lobby door. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Looks like must have been some kind of damp penetration problem there at some point. I mean, there's a valley right above it, which is absolutely full of grass, but not visibly damp internally. Looks like the verge just needs to be repointed too. This is a timber thing. I don't know what it is, but it's an example, provides an example of what woodworm can do to timber, which is basically, eventually, turn it into a pile of dust. There you see, that used to be the timber thing, and now it's just dust. And there again, converting wood into dust. What the hell is that then? Very strange. We are in a 1920s semi-detached house with cavity walls. I believe they're cavity, 260mm anyway, rendered outside. And this is a round window, which you probably see that it is round. Of course you can. It's single glazed, metal framed, probably built by a company called Crittle, although there must have been other people building, manufacturing metal windows in the 1920s. And one of the panes of glass is fractured. A problem with steel framed windows is that they'll rust, and the rusting process involves expansion, which can put a lot of compression on the glazing, resulting in cracking. The other alternative explanation is it's just been broken by somebody, but cracked glazing to old metal rusty window frames is quite common. The other thing about round windows is they're principally a bad idea, because all the rainwater that's running down that pane of glass is going to be trickling around the outside of the circle to the very bottom of the window frame. So there'll be a concentration of water right at the bottom of the window opening. So typically you get a damp patch below a round window, and this house is obliging in coming up with a damp reading. Although, to be honest, if I poke my damp meter in various places in this house, it comes up as damp anyway, so I don't think we could read too much into that. But yeah, whereas a regular rectangular window, you've got a broad windowsill and all the rainwater is going to drip off that. Round windows, you can't really make a windowsill, and that concentration of moisture at the bottom, concentration of rainwater at the bottom of the frame, typically results in dampness. Cavity walls obviously got to get across the cavity, so less likely to be a problem. But that's round windows for you. And here's the same window from the outside, and if we look down there, that's brickwork laid in a style known as English garden wall bond, but solid brick. So everything I said about it being a cavity wall is evidently wrong. And there's some very badly blown render. You see that badly blown render? Not that that's got anything to do with anything. This is that house with the round window. The builder who built it obviously thought it'd be a good idea to try and fool any surveyor who showed up in 2023. The walls are about 250mm thick. According to the OS plan, the house was built, well, it's still being sketched in on the 1938 plan, so it kind of suggests it hadn't been finished then. And you wouldn't build a house with solid walls in the 1930s, probably, so the solid brick walls at the foot of the building seems to be a sort of an architectural feature rather than solid brick, I think. So Having flip-flopped and thought it was cavity walls then solid walls, I suppose in the end it must be a house built with cavity walls, but hardly any cavity. This house is 1920s or 1930s, and this is the landing ceiling. And well, firstly you've got these little battens over the joints, which is an alert that they're not regular plasterboard ceilings, and they have a slightly dimply texture, which immediately makes me assume that they might be of asbestos cement construction. I've been in the loft, which is conveniently there, and they're not asbestos cement, but does this mean that they're not containing asbestos? It's some kind of fiberboard, but I don't know. And this is again one of those occasions when being short is a bit of a nuisance, but if we tap it with the end of a screwdriver, it sounds like that. And we go to the other side of the bedroom door, where I think we've got a plasterboard ceiling. It's quite a different tone. So I think most of the house has had the ceilings replaced, but downstairs, same kind of thing. You can't see the little dimpled surfaces, but you can see the battens over the joints. And we are under the bathroom, so there has been some leaking. But once again, we've got a sort of sound. Whereas we go into the living room, the other side of this partition, well, what was that telling me? I wish I hadn't started now. We have a completely different tune, so I think we can just about tell we've got plasterboard ceilings in most of the house, and this is the old kitchen. Now, come on you bugger. And this is the kitchen. Well, it used to be the kitchen, but those battens again. And the ceiling sounds like that. It's got some kind of textured finish over the top of it. Double dose of asbestos, and possibly no asbestos at all. But obviously got to alert the old customer that he might be buying a slightly asbestos-y house. Nice looking 1960s house. Fairly obvious stuff here really, but down the bottom of the wall, all badly stained, which rather suggests up there you've got a leaky gutter and they're all rusty. So there you go, rusty gutter, stained wall below. It's April the 25th in 2023, and if you've got to be somewhere on planet Earth, there's probably nowhere better to be really than in southern England on a sunny day in the spring. The apple blossom's just beginning to come out, a bit of a magnolia blossom over there, and even the weeds look nice, daisies and dandelions, and there's a blue sky to be cherished in this country. Anyway, there's a house as well, and there it is. It's a 1960s detached house with lots of rather marvellous cracking to it. No structural movement as such, I don't think, but firstly we've got, let's take this window opening for example. There's a reconstituted stone lintel over the window with a great big filled crack in it, and a horizontal crack in the windowsill below. And same again over here. Not quite so much repair being going on, but there it is, same sort of problem. So there's steel reinforcement in those windowsills and lintels, and it's rusting, and the rust is expanding and breaking up the concrete parts. So I don't know, eventually they're going to need to be taken out and replaced, but how long's a piece of string, I wonder. Over here, a vertical crack. I'll go and find somewhere to stand without falling over. There, so there's the top of the house, and between the window and the patio door there's that crack, so that'll be thermal. The walls shrunk, contracted, and the crack's been taken up mostly by the door frame, and then it's continued up to the window and taken up by the rest of the window frame, and that probably happened shortly after it was built and hasn't got any worse, but just looks a bit messy, doesn't it? There's a blackbird behind me singing his head off.